Hello, Internet. Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Instagram, or anywhere else this video may appear. My name is Samuel Huber from SamuelHuber.net, Samuel Huber on YouTube, Huber Family Adventures on Instagram, and also Inclusion Tube on YouTube. But today we're talking on my show, which is called Heroes of Autism. I'm here with Laura Hellmann, who's an author, a podcaster, an autistic mom warrior, and we're going to learn about all those things and what those things are. Can you tell my audience a bit about yourself?
Yes, I am a mom of two kids. My son, Skylar, is on the spectrum. He's on the more severe end of the spectrum. He is nonverbal. He's 17. And I have a neurotypical daughter who will be 15 this month.
Congratulations. Hopefully you can have some kind of birthday for her.
I know. Yes.
What can you tell us about your podcast and why you started it?
Yeah, I started the podcast. It's called Living the Sky Life. I started that last year in September of 2019. And my goal really was to connect a lot of families with children on the spectrum or have their caregivers of someone on the spectrum. But I also wanted to focus more on the older side of the disorder, kids turning 22 and services are ending. And we are, as parents, are left with a lot of questions that are unanswered. For services, we don't really know what to do at that point. So I was hoping to find a lot of families that have either navigated that road before that could give some advice and tips to me and to other parents whose children are upper teenage age. And it's been great. I've had a lot of guests with adults on the spectrum, and they have given so much hope to me with all of the things that their young adults are doing. So it's great.
That's really wonderful. And yeah, that's definitely the biggest question point I meet with my clients, because I am an adult on the spectrum myself, and they're wondering how I did it. Like I'm some kind of unicorn because I have a wife, a kid, and a mortgage. I'm like every other guy. I met the right girl at the right time, and things just kind of worked out. Which leads me to my next question. As I was going through your Instagram, I noticed this hashtag called Autism Mom Warrior. What exactly is that?
I just feel like that hashtag represents everything I've done for the past 17 years of his life. I, of course, am always trying to find therapies and things that will help bring more independence for Skylar, and medical treatments that might help him in various ways. And I never give up, and I never take one physician's word for, any diagnosis. I just keep pushing on. And if some therapy doesn't work, I try something else, and I reach out, and I'm always researching, always trying to find things that will let him live his best life and that don't harm him in any way. It's hard with a nonverbal child because you don't ever know what's exactly wrong. If he's frustrated and banging or upset, I'm just kind of guessing at, if he has a bellyache or if he has a headache or if he's hungry. I really don't know. So I'm trying everything I can think of to gain more independence for him.
What would independence for him look like for you, and what kind of independence do you want him to eventually have?
Sure. Feeding himself, he's doing pretty well with that, but we still need to prepare his food and sit next to him and help him with his portions and help him with the fork and things like that. Dressing himself completely independently. He can do some things, but some things he needs our help for. Just having some sort of communication to be able to tell us if he's hungry, if he's tired, what he needs. We've tried, PECs, we've tried the Big Mac, we've tried iPads, you name it, we've tried it. Sign language, nothing seems to resonate with him. So right now where he's pointing, I give him choices of 2 items, like 2 shirts to put on, which one he likes the best, foods to eat, and he points and he, chooses, he knows exactly what he wants. So we're just trying to give him enable him to be able to tell us in a way what he needs. that would be huge independence for us. So it would take a little bit off of our shoulders.
Mhm. Have you tried putting like a big choice board on his bedroom wall where he can just point to individual objects, pictures?
Yeah, we haven't tried a big board. I've hung pictures on the actual, like the door of the bathroom, like to let me
Mhm.
know he has to go to the bathroom. I've put a picture of the bathroom so where
Mhm.
he can touch it and tell us, and his ABA center does that too.
Mhm.
I think pictures is going to be the way to go for us, but I've learned that the original PEX pictures that were all stick figures and
Yeah.
hand-drawn objects doesn't work for him. So I took pictures of pretty much everything I could think of, the
Mhm.
actual item, and we're using those.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, because that's the big thing with especially some like your son is like those stick figures don't look like the actual objects, and I think my problem with PECs is they don't look like the actual object because they can't relate. Of
mhm,
oh, you're talking about a tree, but or a person. Oh, this is a stick figure. What is that? Like,
mhm.
I think like yeah, PECs need to be more accurate depictions. So I think actual pictures are the definitely the way to go. So I'm guessing your son's your big inspiration for your book. Can you tell us a bit more about the book that's about to come out?
Yeah, yep, it's out for pre-order right now, and it will actually hit the mailboxes of everyone that pre-ordered it in the end of June, so just next month. But it's called Welcome to My Life, a personal parenting journey through autism, and it's pretty much the life story of raising Skylar and all of the things that came with it, the treatments, the various, I mean, from my pregnancy with him to the pregnancy of my daughter. And everything that we've done in between, and all of the emotional things that come along with it. I'm hoping that people who have a child on the spectrum or they're a caregiver of someone on the spectrum, that they can relate to a lot of my emotions and a lot of what I was going through as a parent with two children, one on the spectrum, one not. And for people who are maybe counselors or teachers in schools or therapists, that they can read it and gain a lot of insight as to what maybe the neurotypical child in your family is feeling and going through and having their own issues with a sibling on the spectrum. I talk a lot about my marriage. My first marriage ended in divorce,
Mhm.
and my current husband is phenomenal with the kids. And so I talk about relationships and how that can be affected with someone with special needs. So there are a lot of people that hopefully the story will resonate with,
Mhm.
even if they don't specifically, parent a child on the spectrum. So
Mhm. You mentioned in the beginning part of your answer about having your going from having your son to your daughter. What was the if you don't mind me asking, what was it like going from okay, my first child he has autism. I'm about to have my second. Will she or he have autism? Like, can you go a bit into that experience if you don't mind?
yeah, absolutely. I was a nervous wreck the entire pregnancy with my daughter. With my son, I did the exact same things as with my daughter during my pregnancy. I, stayed away from tuna and mercury, and I didn't drink soft drinks. I mean, I did everything I thought correctly. And so, being that I did everything correctly with my son, I was super panicked that I would have another child on the spectrum, and I just didn't think there was any way I was going to be able to handle two children with severe special needs. And it was a stressful time. And then even her development, she's very neurotypical. I mean, she did everything on time. In fact, early. She talked early. She walked early. All of those things. It was it was such a blessing seeing her develop quote unquote normally. However, it was also very strange because she did everything first, and she's still doing things that Skylar has yet to do.
Mhm.
Skylar's not potty trained. So my first attempt at potty training anyone was my second child. So everything I experienced as a parent, even hearing the word mom, was so far off because I hadn't had any of that with Skylar. So it was tough emotionally to celebrate all of the things that she's done, but to mourn the fact that my son still hasn't done any of those things. So it's it's good and bad. I just try to see the good in it, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's the hugest thing is like seeing the blessing. And then I think is your daughter can be a hero to your son and like an example because autistic people are very visual, and having her around, I'm sure, motivates him. Um, what would you say to parents that are going through that situation? Like, will we have another child on the spectrum, um, or will we not? Like, how, looking back, how would you emotionally get ready for if you do or you don't have one?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it definitely needs to be a unified parenting decision between your spouse and yourself. If one person isn't on board, I definitely think that you should wait, just because in my experience, it's just so much work that if you do end up with another child with special needs, it can cause a lot of animosity in the marriage and a lot of problems.
Mhm.
But I also think that, there's genetic testing you can do now. I mean, nothing can guarantee a positive or a negative result with those tests during pregnancy, but there are a lot of things that you can do to kind of determine the risk. But if you're meant to have another child, if God blesses you with more children, I mean, I would definitely say go for it. I have a lot of podcasting friends and a lot of friends in my community that have only children, and those children have special needs,
Mhm.
and they wish that they had another child, whether they ended up with special needs or not, to
Mhm.
have some sort of, like, kind of like you mentioned earlier, another role model for their child to aspire to, and to watch do things and to play and to kind of teach them. They can learn probably a lot more from their sibling than they can from their parent.
Mhm.
So it'd be nice to have another child. And for the parents' sake, I don't think it's as prevalent to have multiple children with special needs as it is to only have one. Um,
Mhm.
but it'd be nice for the parents too to be able to go through some of those traditional rites of passage with your other children.
Mhm.
Weddings, graduations, things like that, that your special needs child may not end up doing. So, it can be a blessing all around to have more children. I think that's just my opinion.
Right.
So,
Um, so how'd you go about explaining to your daughter why Skylar is the way he is, and how is, over the years, has her view on him and her interactions with him changed?
I started at an early age. I mean, she's very, she noticed a lot of things, like, why isn't he doing that? Why can't he do that? And she was great. They're 2 years apart, and she was a great little helper. I mean, she'd even sit at a little table with me when I would do some ABA therapy with him and hand him his popcorn reward or whatever. She liked being a part of it. As she's gotten older, she has a lot of resentment right now at those teenage years. He's annoying. Like, everything we do revolves around his schedule and whether he can handle a situation. If he can't, we have to divide and conquer, and I take her somewhere, or my husband will take Skylar somewhere, and we separate. That's getting old. I mean, they're definitely not getting along very well right now. But
Mm.
I feel like, and as I touched on a whole section of her in the book, um, I know that she will always be his biggest cheerleader,
Mm.
and she learned vast amounts of empathy as a child, just seeing, she cannot tolerate anybody looking at him wrong or saying anything about him. I mean, she is the first to jump to his defense. But they have their typical sibling
Right.
rivalries when it comes to things.
In a way, you got your rite of passage. One of your rites of passage with your children is like, children. You fight with your siblings.
Yep.
So you did get a sense of normalcy with Skylar and your daughter. So I think that's one of the huge things I tell parents to look for, is like the victory is like, okay, they didn't have the typical relationship with each other, but like, it's teaching your daughter to be a much stronger person and more tolerant and accepting of other people's differences. And I'm where most teen girls are like, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and I
Yeah.
think that's a huge blessing, and that's the way to look at especially lower functioning autistic people, is that they teach us so much about enjoying the simple things and accomplishing just a simple task that most people that are neurotypical take for granted.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest concerns, though, for the future is that she automatically assumes that it's her responsibility to care for him and to manage his trust and to, just take care of him when I'm no longer around. And
Mhm.
I hate that that burden is placed on her and that she's placed it on herself. And I'm trying to put every single thing in place to ensure that, you know, other people can care for him and that she's not fully responsible, because she would likely have a spouse and a family and everything of her own. And that worries me and keeps me up at night thinking about, you know, just his future, and when I'm not here, what that's going to look like. So,
Yeah. And I think that preaches to one of the big organizations that I'm involved in, called Inclusion Festival, which is a festival geared for autistic people. So the
mhm.
music turned down lower volume, and they have like sensory areas and calm down areas and a bunch of like fun community based things. And that's one thing I encourage a lot of parents out there, like form a community with each other, so that it's a council of parents, a tribe to help take care of our children. So it won't all be on my daughter. It'll be this whole community that's looking out for Skylar.
Mhm.
Um, and
That's great.
that's one thing I think that, you know, if she's like, oh, am I going to be all by myself? Like, encourage her to reach out to the autism community, because I know as you as a mom, probably as soon as you hear the newest trend in autism, you're like, ooh, can I put that in his life?
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
There have definitely been things that I've tried that I'm like, oh, I probably knew that this would be a zero result, but
Mhm.
had to try it. As long as it does no harm to him, I'm always kind of game to try anything. So,
Yeah. Um, that being said, how has your perspective on autism changed over the years? And if you could change one thing about how the world looks at autism, what would that be and why?
I don't know if my perspective has changed. I've learned a lot over the years. Obviously, when he was first diagnosed at the age of 3, there really wasn't, I mean, there was very little research done. We didn't have Facebook, or I don't think Facebook was out then. Um, Google was kind of limited. I don't even know if that was available. So that's evolved so much. There are so many resources. There are so many bloggers and podcasters and YouTube channels and all of these things that everyone like you are doing, that's
Mm.
really helped. And I think that travels into the community too. It's helped bring awareness
Mhm.
to autism, that there is not a look of autism. I think that's one of the most annoying things that I've heard over the years, is people saying, you know, if he's acting up or something, and they're like, you know, he doesn't look disabled. I don't really, that is so offensive. I mean, that is one thing that I hope that people have learned through all of this publicity around autism that's heightened, is that there isn't a look. Not every child with autism is the same. It's a spectrum for a reason.
Mhm.
And there are some kids who are savants in things, but just because my child has autism doesn't mean he's a classical pianist that should, you know,
Mhm.
go on tour. You know, that's not a skill that he has. He's not a savant in anything. He has his own areas of strength, and he has taught us a lot about patience and perseverance. That's for sure.
He's a savant of patience.
Yeah. God, he has no patience, actually. I don't think
Well,
that he's a
as a
savant.
teacher, like he's a
Yeah.
good teacher.
Yes, yes, for sure. I've
Uh,
definitely had to calm my perfectionism and my patience over the years. So,
mhm. So, how important is, like, we talk a lot about our children on the spectrum, but we often ignore you, the parents, which leaves you the need to take care of yourself. How important is self care when you have a special need child like Skylar?
it's very, very, very important, especially during this quarantine. Luckily, at Christmas time, we bought a Peloton. So my husband and I are on it every single day. We sync our calendars to make sure that, you know, we can get our workout time in, whatever it is, going for a run, something. Um, I need that space, and I know he does too. We need to get out of this environment, and caring for his every single need every day. It
Mhm.
is overwhelming, and there are plenty of sleepless nights because he doesn't sleep that great. We were up
Mhm.
at 4 o'clock this morning. And if we don't take the time, even as tired as we are, to do it, it builds up in me anyway. It builds up like this just overwhelming frustration, and I almost feel angry. Like I just have to release it. And working out for me has been the way to do that.
Mhm.
It's very important.
Yeah, definitely. Like, some form of movement, even if it's just lifting your laundry up and down the stairs a few times.
Yeah.
Um, So so your second husband came into the picture. I just thought of this question. How did you explain Skylar to him, and for all the parents that are bringing in a step parent into a situation like yours? Like,
Hmm.
how did you go about explaining to him and helping him adjust to that life? Your
It's a divine intervention. I always say, when Josh, my husband, came into our lives, because I really didn't have to explain a lot other than, how to diaper change and how to, do some of these things, because he had no children of his own biologically. So he had never changed pull-ups before or any of that stuff. But when I met him, I mean, I'm always very clear to anyone that I dated or anything that I was a package deal, that I had 2 children, and I explained, everything about autism to the best of my ability.
Mhm.
Um, and I took quite a bit of time before I introduced him to Kendall and Skylar, my kids. And Skylar actually, I think, won him over day one. As soon as Josh came over for dinner, Skylar went right to the door and grabbed his hand, because he doesn't know a stranger, and
Mhm.
took his hand and guided him to the basement where all of his toys were.
Mhm.
And they just bonded instantly. Their bond today is closer than my bond with Skylar. It really is. He
Mhm.
will do anything Josh asks him to do. Whereas I ask him and he just kind of looks the other way.
Mhm.
But
Typical
and Josh
teenagers.
actually, yeah, Josh actually adopted Skylar last year.
Mhm.
So he is officially his father. So that's
Double.
been really neat to see, because their bond is just beautiful. So
Mhm.
he is all in.
Uh, what would you say to someone who's a parent who's just entering it, like, and they're really like struggling to understand autism? Have only heard like a brief, like 60-minute spew about it. Um, how how would they go about really learning to understand it?
Is it you mean a parent who is coming into a family as a step parent, or?
Yeah, like if Josh was not as awesome as he is, like had 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 no idea what autism is, and like really found like the aggressive behavior is really challenging,
Hmm.
but they still wanted to make it work and really learn how to bond with a child like that. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great if someone is continuing to want to make it work. I think for me, if it would have been that situation for us, and I could see that Josh was overwhelmed, or that he just wasn't bonding with the kids,
mhm,
for the sake of my children, again, because we're a package deal,
mhm,
as much as I really liked Josh, I would have probably had to move on. I
mhm,
just don't know that putting your kids in a situation like that with someone who is learning to kind of handle it. I
mhm,
don't want to put my kids in a situation with someone that just has to learn how to deal with autism.
mhm,
I want them to just kind of look past the autism. And that's one of the things that Josh has always done, is every situation, I'm sometimes the one who will say, I don't know if we should go here or do this, because I think it's going to really upset Skylar. And he's like, listen, we'll just go. And if he gets upset, we'll drive separate. And then you can stay with Kendall and I'll take him and we'll go walking or something. He's always the first to offer the let's try it. And then I'll take him out of the situation, or we'll come up with a different plan.
mhm,
And that's what I think people should, I guess, speaking from a female perspective, if you're dating someone or looking for someone, you want someone that's all in no matter what. Like, we'll figure it out, don't worry about it, instead of having to learn to deal with it. I just don't know that that would work for me personally, because
mhm.
I think it would just present so many challenges in the relationship, and you
Right.
would hate to have your kids feel like they're the blame, they're the
Mhm.
reason that your
That you're-
relationship with that person didn't
mhm.
work.
So yeah, so it sounds like the most important thing for a step parent coming in is to see the child's humanity, not the autism.
Absolutely. Yeah, treat them just like you would treat the neurotypical children in the family, if there are those. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Excellent. Is there anything you would like to say to the audience before I let you go?
No, other than take a listen to the podcast, Living the Sky Life, and go out to Amazon and pre-order my book. I really hope that it makes a difference in some lives. So I appreciate the time and talking to you, and I'm looking forward to having you on my podcast.
Yeah, next week, folks, I'm going to be on her podcast. So
Yeah.
tune on in. How can people get in contact with you if they want to listen to your podcast or talk to you about anything autism related?
Yeah, the podcast is on Apple. Again, it's Living the Sky Life. It's on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. And on every episode, I link my Instagram, my Facebook, and my email accounts. So you can reach out to me at any of those and let me know what I can help with. I'll do my best. From a parent perspective, I'm no therapist by any stretch. I have no ABA training. So, but other than that, I can just share my experience with you.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing, part of Heroes of Autism, is sharing the experience, because we spend so much time with the experts. And I think hearing your story and other stories, it's all about bringing some humanity to the whole autism situation that's going around the world, because we ain't going nowhere. So I think that's the biggest thing for keep writing your books and keep sharing, because it's all about humanity, not a disorder.
Absolutely. Acceptance is key, right?
Exactly. All right. Thank you for coming on our show. All right, folks.
Yeah.
Until next time, this is Sam Huber signing off.